Senator Marcus, for what purpose you rise?
To debate the motion.
You have the floor.
I will admit that I was expecting a motion to concur be a yes from you all, so I'm going to hold out hope that my remarks might get addressed when you meet in private to discuss this bill. If I can be invited to that, I'd love to. I have a lot of concerns about Senate Bill 749. It is an undemocratic power grab of one of the most cynical kinds that I have seen. It's the same thing that this legislative body tried to do as soon as Governor Cooper was elected in 2016, but that attempt, you will recall, was struck down by the North Carolina Supreme Court, which ruled it unconstitutional. The second attempt was in 2018, when there was a referendum on the ballot for a proposed constitutional amendment, thereby admitting that what we were trying to do here today was unconstitutional, asked the voters whether they want to change the Constitution to allow it. The voters soundly rejected that referendum because they don't want politicians monkeying around with our right to vote, our right to vote privately, or to have our votes count. So now we have a third attempt, and we have heard in the past that this is one of the justifications for this is the change in the deadline to receive the mail-in ballots that happened in 2020. But we know that that's really just a cover because for a few reasons. One, the decision to extend the deadline due to the pandemic-related mail delays was actually a unanimous bipartisan decision. And two, this body has already addressed the delay of the mail-in ballots problem with Senate Bill 747, which has already passed here, and it eliminates North Carolina's grace period completely. So, no, this bill does not have a justification, and it goes farther than the previous attempts did to make these changes. It's going to sweep in havoc and partisan gridlock. It's grabbing power from the executive branch where it belongs and giving it to this partisan-controlled legislative branch where it does not belong. We'll remind you that every living ex-governor, Democrats and Republicans alike, have publicly denounced this idea. Even the most right-wing operatives know this bill is unconstitutional. I don't often agree with John Hood at the John Locke Foundation, but he's right when he says that this bill ignores the Constitution and, quote, violates the separation of powers clause. So the only reason this bill is being pushed through now for a third try is that there's been a change in the party makeup of the North Carolina Supreme Court, and that's not how democracy is supposed to operate. Unconstitutional is unconstitutional, regardless of politics, and this bill is unconstitutional. I'll remind you that when the governor was of the same party as the majority party in this body, there was no attempt like this to make these changes. But now, we see what this is. These are changes that some think will give one party a political advantage ahead of the 2024 elections. So my question is, will you change it back in a couple of years when the chaos that this bill is sure to cause makes a mess of our elections, removes early voting sites, and angers the voters? Will you repeal this law if you decide you like the person elected governor in 2024 or in 2028? Creating state and county boards with an even split between Republicans and Democrats, as this bill does, sounds even-handed. But we see past that spin, and we know that it actually sets us up for tie votes. In other words, gridlock. And then places this Republican-controlled legislature in the role of tiebreaker, allowing players in the game to also be the referee violates all rules of fairness. Democrats in the House offered several amendments yesterday to this bill, almost all of which were rejected. I hope you'll consider them in the committee. Arguably the most important one is Amendment 10, which would have ensured that valid election results are certified and that a small group of unelected people don't have the ability to override the will of the voters by sending in a fake slate of electors. To be clear, Senate Bill 749, as currently drafted, could make North Carolina vulnerable to the kind of election denial and tampering that we saw when former President Trump and his allies didn't like the results in some of the other states in 2020 and attempted to manipulate those states' laws to overturn election results. That worries me. That should worry you. This bill also paves the way for local boards to severely limit the number of early vote locations, down to as few as one location per county. Early voting is popular, and it's good for democracy. Why would you choose to pass a law that will likely undermine early voting? So if you pass this bill, it sounds like we have another chance to stop it, but if you do pass this bill, I hope you'll also put in the budget a massive supply of cleaning supplies, because you're going to need it to clean up the mess that this bill creates. I believe the voters of North Carolina will wonder what happened to the smooth, fair, secure elections that we once enjoyed, and they'll be begging you to repeal this unnecessary, unconstitutional, and unwise law.